Hey you guys, this is the Jolene video, a version for instructors so that you can see kind of what your students would be doing if you choose to use this in the classroom. The Jolene thing that they would see is a 2-hour video that introduces Rails and test-driven development. It's really a pretty simple look at it though. It doesn't talk about routes or controller, only models and a little bit of Rails C to get some data back and forth, and some test-driven development with that as well. So seeing their first little look at RSpec. We feel it's a pretty good little introduction. This is what the student does during the video. First, set up a new Rails project using Postgres and not test unit. And then after that's all bundled up, then we'll go in and install some gems to allow RSpec to work. So this is the 7 steps that they go through. After we get that all bundled here, then we'll add in the gem file, the gems for the testing, and then put together just one model, scaffold it all out, just with a Rails G scaffold. So we'll have genre, and it only has one attribute, a name attribute. And then after taking a look at putting together with Rails C some genre.count and seeing what's out there, then we put together a test just to make sure that there's no duplicate names, put in a validator on the model to enforce that, and then add another scaffolded model, artist, that relates. So artist will relate with a one-to-many relationship. Genre has many artists. Artist belongs to genre. And then finally, in the templates, because a one-to-many relationship with a scaffolded page really kind of sucks in terms of adding an artist then means that you have to type in a numerical foreign key. Like this artist has genre number 3 or something. How is an end user supposed to know that? So we take a look at how to have a drop-down list just using collection select. So it does take 2 hours to gently walk a student through all the thought process of how to build that out. Taking a peek at our bundle, looks like it just finished up. So we would then change directory in the musicality and do Atom. We're using the Atom text editor because it's free, doesn't have any sort of nagware about it, like Sublime has some nagware that comes up. After opening this, our first stop is to look at the gem file and see that we're installing Postgres and what version of Rails we're up to. There could be some differences, obviously, as the student might use a different, newer version of Rails potentially in the future. And then we go to add the gems to be able to do testing. So RSpec Rails, at least version 3.0 or something compatible. And then the shoulda matchers. Saving that out. We'll go in to another bundle. And we describe dependencies here. And then really quickly into generating a new scaffolded model. So Rails G scaffold for genre, just having a name. And from here we have them take their first look at the Rails console, seeing that genre is a class that has been built out. But then you can't get out to the database yet because, well, it doesn't exist. So we show them this error message. Musicality development doesn't exist. And then we bail and go ahead and rake db create to be able to build out the database, and also rake db migrate to build out the table info for the genres. And then back in Rails C, we can see that we can do a genre count, and there's none of them, and we can do the connection and so forth. So that's kind of just first part of getting their sea legs, if you will. I want people to be kind of familiar with Rails C so that they appreciate model testing and such. So from there, we talk about the Rails server, and we see that, oh wow, we have a functional application connecting over with localhost 3000. Over to genres, they've got themselves a functional page. They can put in new genres if they wish. And see that they come up in the list, and also that they have IDs associated, IDs of 1 and 2. Thought that IDs are not reused, so a little bit of Postgres topic there as well. And then we get out to writing tests. So stopping the Rails server for a moment, then we'll do Rails G RSpec install, And we see the pile of built-in tests that have been built out when you scaffolded stuff. So bundle exec, rspec, to be able to see everything in the spec folder. When we describe some of those tests, just in brief though. And then we focus on the spec models and the one test that would have been built out for the genre model. So it's pending. We just have one of them currently out there. And we have folks then get back to Atom and build out an appropriate test for genre. The idea being, well, we want it to be that they can't put in duplicate names. Right now it's allowed. Putting in this code, we build one genre and expect it to be able to be saved. And then the second genre with the same name, we expect it to not be valid. So a kind of a wordy rspec example. We put that out there, save this, and have them rerun their test and see that it fails. Expected the second one, genre 2, to not be able to be saved because it's not valid, but actually it was valid because there's no validator that prevents it. So then we get out and put the validator over in the model. And rerunning the test then comes up green light. Very nice. From this we discuss we should always write tests and then an implementation. And then we get into adding a second model, all scaffolded out. So we're just operating pretty cheaply, I realize, but the idea is to be able to get a newcomer to be able to accept testing and to think that it's not evil, to want to do testing every single time. The Jolene video, the next one, gets more into testing the controller and the views and just some best practices around that. But for right now, just any testing that they do and are happy about, I am delighted as an educator to have them do that. So we build out artist and again have a name for them that's just a string. And then a description that could be longer, so we make it a text. The year that they were formed, an integer. And finally, a relation that goes back over to genre. So their first look also at some primary foreign keys. Not that we even call them that, but the whole belongs to thing comes together there. And again, we talk about doing the bundle exec reg db migrate to put that new table on board. And firing up the web server once more, we go in and then analyze again how those foreign keys work. So we had built out genres, a few of them. We had 6, I think, in the video. And as we go out to artists, we can make a new one. And the year that they were formed, whatever. The genre, though, this is something which is supposed to be a foreign key. And you would think maybe I can type in alternative rock or something. But you can't. You have to put in the numerical foreign key, which is just ridiculous. So we put that in, and it did wire up to alternative rock, which was genre number 2. So we see that that's kind of weak, but really we should also then be writing some tests that surround, let's not have 2 different artists with the same name. So we have them go into the genre spec with all of the stuff that they built out for the name, and put it also in for the artist spec. Just doing some renaming so that everywhere that it mentions genre, then it goes in and mentions artist instead. And also here for the class, an artist might be Stevie Ray Vaughan. We find that our tests fail. Expected that Stevie Ray Vaughan couldn't be entered in twice. And we put the same sort of validator out there. Validating that the name has a uniqueness of true. And we've got green tests again, 2 passing tests. Finally, we want to enforce that artist always can belong to genre. So this is where we describe the shoulda matchers just in brief. Getting back over to our tests, just for the artist spec, we then add in that it should belong to genre. We never mentioned that we could trade out this crazy test with the shoulda matcher and say that it should validate uniqueness of name. But all of those other lines, it's easy to then just replace it with one of these shoulda matchers. So that's something that happens in the Jolene video. They get to see that it's all easier with the shoulda matchers. Anyway, they have 3 passing tests, 1 for the genre, 2 for the artist. And then we finally get into step 7 of the video where, oh, it's so terrible that we had to key in some numerical ID for the foreign key. So we dive into the views and discuss on artists with, oh, this is the test, so better not go there, right? We go into the views, and then on the artists, we discuss that when we're editing a given artist, instead of having a text field where we type in a numerical ID, we'd want to change that out to a collection select. And we'll grab a list of all the genres and have the values of the select list be the ID and the text be the name. And they get to see that. It's all pretty. Plus, before we leave this, I'll go ahead and change out where it was showing in the list the genre just as being an object. We have showing the name if, in fact, artist genre is not equal to nil. That same idea we also put over in the show view template right over here. So artist genre name if the artist genre is not equal to nil. And now it'll show a nice name instead of that screwball genre object that it was showing before. Let's get our Rails server running again and see that. That's a lot better, seeing alternative rock. Plus, then if we were to edit one of these, then we have the drop-down list involved, so that's nice. And then the final thing that we have going on is we don't have a way to say that there is no genre. Like maybe some artists are so off the wall that there's just like nothing you can really classify them as, or my genre list is not built out enough yet or something. So to allow that there would be a nil genre ID for an artist, then we go back into the editing form, and it's kind of a cheat move. I mean, this was a judgment call. I decided not to go in and show them anything in the controller, but really this information, this would be like genre list or something. This should be built out in the controller in both the new and the edit actions of the controller. It should have something that says here's your list of genres, and then we also put at the top pick one. But here I decided I'll just inline this thing. So that changes in the Jolene video, by the way, as well. But on all these guys, we just do a 2A to get it out to an array, and then unshift in a genre.new with the name of pick one. So with that, it adds at the top of the list this new genre. It has a genre ID of nil, so if they choose it, then it disassociates this artist from having any sort of genre whatsoever. So saving that out and taking a look at editing Weezer again. Oh, and maybe it helps if I spell unshift properly. That would be good. Unshift. Then we've got the pick one, and this means, all right, I don't have a genre. And when we have a nil genre, then it shows up as being blank because we had that if logic when we were at the show page there. Or if you see the list of all of them, and also the genre is empty here. So that's the focus of the Jolene video, and we hope you find it useful in the classroom. It's something we put together so that you would have an easier time in teaching Rails, hopefully Rails the right way, where people would never get into a bad habit of writing code that doesn't have a test. With that, thanks very much, folks. You'll find a lot more resources out on the Pelangelis website. It's pelangelis.com. A real pleasure to hang out with you, and enjoy the Rails videos.